Welcome to Speaking of Scary. This is Arthur,
And this is Tyler.
and today we're going to be talking about reboots that we would love to see happen. First, we want to go over a couple news items. My first thing is I just saw today is that Anthony Michael Hall was cast as Tommy Doyle in the new Halloween Kills movie that's supposed to be coming out. Also, John Carpenter is scoring the Halloween Kills and Halloween Dies, so
That is nice to hear.
that'll be good. Hopefully, hopefully. But anyway, Anthony Michael Hall is cast as Tommy Doyle. I could really care less. I don't care about him either way. But if they didn't contact Paul Rudd first to try to
Super upset.
get him back, that's ridiculous. Because for one, that was his first movie role. And that he was like a baby in Halloween 6. And that was his first movie role as Tommy Doyle. And I would have loved to see him be recast as Tommy Doyle again. I know he's Ant-Man now and he's a big deal, but it would have
The
been.
Halloween franchise isn't a small deal, though. So
And he's a cool enough guy. It seems like that he
totally
might do that. So they better have at least tried to get him. This is going to tie into our reboots, but Are You Afraid of the Dark? The reboot is inching closer and closer to becoming a real thing. I mean, it's already filmed. It's a real thing. It's just coming closer to being in my eyeballs, and I'm pretty excited about that. So the rebooting Are You Afraid of the Dark, from what I can tell,
what was that streaming on again? Nickelodeon.
Nickelodeon.
Is
It's
that
gonna.
streaming or is that?
No, I
on
think
TV?
it's going to be
Okay,
on TV.
televised, okay. So we'll probably have to wait a year or so before the first season gets released on any sort of streaming platform.
Yeah, to be honest, I love Are You Afraid of the Dark so much. I've seen every episode a million times. I watch it quarterly. My kids love it. I just love that series so much that I'll probably just go out and buy it as it comes
I
out.
feel like I'd probably want to go through and watch the entire original series before jumping into the new one, just to
Oh,
kind of like get a
dude,
refresher.
we can watch them. We can watch them together. I'm telling you,
yeah.
I love them. I was up with my baby at 1 o'clock in the morning the other night, and I just threw on an episode of Are You Afraid of the Dark.
Traumatize your infant, yeah.
So, but I love them. So that's coming closer, and it looks like I'm super excited for it, but it also is a little bit worrisome because from what I can see from the teaser trailers they put out, is they may actually be rebooting it to a point where they're using the same stories
Oh, really?
because
I mean, that doesn't necessarily concern me too much because at least we kind of know to some degree what to expect from it. Because I mean, there's enough good episodes in those original ones that I'm okay with that. Because I think I'd be a little bit more apprehensive if they were like going completely all new material and not like knowing what their plans are going forward.
that's true. When they brought it back the first time, they took that like 2 year hiatus and then brought it back. Those episodes were garbage. So that's true. That is actually a really good point. See, it does also from the teaser trailers look much creepier, like much more.
Like the cinematography is much.
Yeah, like even my 9-year-old who loves Are You Afraid of the Dark and watches all the time, she was like, "Are we gonna be able to watch that?"
That's a good
So
sign. That's you know that's a good sign.
yeah, but so I'm really excited about that. Anything else that you want to talk about before we hop into our reboots?
I did just recently watch Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark.
Oh
on
yeah,
theaters. Honestly, I would probably give it a 7 out of 10. It 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 felt to me like somewhere in between the first Goosebumps movie that was released and the first part of It. So if you've seen those, it's kind of like a weird in between of those where it had definitely had the creepiness of the It movie, but didn't have like the violence necessarily of that level, except for one particular scene, which I'm not going to spoil for you. But it also had like the kind of oriented towards like teenagers, young adults sort of thing that the Goosebumps franchise was more oriented towards kids. So it felt like it was being made for an audience slightly older than the Goosebumps franchise, but not quite as mature as it. So it was a nice kind of in between. And it had a nice like kind of independent storyline that was running in addition to all like the references to the books and stuff like that. So it actually had its own original storyline. I was pretty pleased.
oh that's good to know that
So-
it's not just
Yeah, no, it's
here's
not just
the
a
story,
rehashing.
here's
It's not
the
a
story.
Yeah, no, it's not a rehashing at all. They kind of went with the Goosebumps method of incorporating the characters from the storylines and then tying them into an overarching plot for the film itself, which I think they did a pretty damn good job of doing. All right.
right.
With that, I think that's probably just jump right into it.
Yeah. The first movie that I'd like to see rebooted, and they've talked about rebooting it like for a while now, and I don't know why they're not doing it, is Maniac Cop, because that was like a really underrated horror from like the 80s. I think Sam Raimi did it. I know Bruce Campbell's in the first two movies. I'm pretty sure it's a Sam Raimi movie, but it was a decent little movie.
Yeah, so we can expect some levity.
Yeah.
Just because it's Sam Raimi.
So I would love to see it reboot. I would love to see Sam Raimi do it again. I bet he could. I mean, just with more tools now. The only thing that you'd be missing is the original actor who played the Maniac Cop. He is not with us anymore. At least I'm pretty sure. Hopefully I didn't just kill a guy on the radio.
By the way, this guy's dead. He's like, it's news to me.
But he had this genetic I don't want to like genetic deformity. I don't want to be
insensitive.
but so his jawbone formed super wide, and I always thought it was makeup in the movie, but it turns out that's just what that actor looked like. But it did add like an aesthetic to like because he was kind of a zombie, and it just kind of almost made him look a little bit more realistic as a zombie, a little bit more bloated.
So they definitely have to like try to make up for that with like with the practical effects and stuff and makeup and prosthetics in order to get that same look.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, Maniac Cop is definitely my first one that I would love to see rebooted.
All right, so I'm going to start with Tales from the Crypt. So there actually was an attempt to reboot this recently with M. Night Shyamalan kind of leading the charge on this, working with TNT. Unfortunately, it fell through due to extremely complicated licensing issues, where there's actually like 3 or 4 different entities that all have rights to the Tales from the Crypt franchise, which is a big kerfuffle. So the original series was done by HBO, but it had shared rights with Warner Brothers. In addition to that, you have the original series, which was actually a comic book form from the 1950s, and the comic book company still owns the rights to the comic entity. So when he ended up approaching them, he was begging them basically just to like give him the rights. And I think he actually did an article, or did an interview with some website actually, and they asked him about this, and he said that he flat out just told them, like, begged them, like, please just give me the rights, I promise I'll do this justice. But unfortunately they weren't really willing to give over the rights to it. So
those money grabs are so stupid. What were they're not doing anything with it.
Exactly.
What were they going to do with it? Just give us the fans what we want.
Yeah,
seriously, like, they weren't going to do anything with the rights anyway. Just give it to them.
right.
Or I mean, a great example, everyone's been talking about this. I'm sure you have a lot of opinions about it. What's going on with Spider-Man right now?
Yeah.
Why? Like, why are we doing this to the fans? Because Sony wants more. Sony doesn't have enough money. I'll buy another PlayStation. That's whatever. Just let me have
Frankly,
Tom Holland in the MCU.
If we're being totally honest, there's only been 2 good Sony-led Spider-Man projects, which was Spider-Man 2 and the Into the Spider-Verse. I would argue that the first Spider-Man was good, but that's only because we didn't have expectations at the time. If you compare it now, it really doesn't hold up except for like 1 or 2 scenes in the film.
I honestly haven't gone back and watched it.
Watch it. It's like watching an episode of Power Rangers. It's not good. It's not spectacular. But yeah, so yeah, I agree. I understand from the company perspective of like having to try to turn a profit, especially when you're giving up an IP. But I mean, make a sale, like offer a deal, and just make something off of it, but to let the series continue.
Yeah, I mean, well, and it's just don't come crying to us about how pirating isn't a victimless crime and how you need to like.
Not that we're supporting piracy.
Yeah, we're not supporting piracy. I'm just saying that these companies act like they're the victims.
Yes.
When. Give us what we want. If you want us to pay you for your property, give us what we want. So that's all I'm saying. Sorry we went off on a tangent with that.
It's wasting money at that point, though.
But
like if you're not doing something with it.
To swing back around to Tales from the Crypt, have you ever seen the Tales from the Crypt cartoon?
I didn't know there was a cartoon, actually. I know there's a comic book, which is originally where it came from, but...
Yeah, they... Probably early 90s when they were doing every single movie turned into a cartoon. They made a Tales from the Crypt cartoon called Tales from the Crypt Creeper, which was like a Saturday morning cartoon.
Saturday morning cartoon.
Yeah, and it actually wasn't terrible. It was like just in that like Goosebumps-ish, like just a little spooky. Everything always ended with a happy ending, and there's like a moral to everyone.
Okay. Well, that was kind of in trend with the original with the series too. Is what every Tales from the Crypt like short series, whatever, had like a moral story to it, like a lesson to be learned.
Yeah, I don't know how long. I think it ran for like 4 seasons.
The cartoon.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anything else on Tales from the Crypt?
I think that's pretty much it for me. So go ahead to the next one.
All right, so that inspired me for my TV reboot that I'd like to see that's in the same vein is Tales from the Dark Side, because I recently I've owned the first season forever, and I recently started watching it. I'd never actually watched it, and it's a really decent TV show. It's not as graphic as Tales from the Crypt, because I'm pretty sure it was on CBS versus HBO, who could do a lot more. But it was like a nice middle ground between like Tales from the Crypt and Are You Afraid of the Dark? Like scary stories, a little bit more mature, but not so much that your kid couldn't walk into the room while you were watching it.
Pause the film or something.
And a lot of the stories were really well written. Acting, it's a TV series, but a lot of the stories were super well written and really enjoyable. So I would love to see them bring Tales from the Dark Side back. And I think it could do well. Maybe even like on Netflix or Amazon Prime or something like that.
Yeah, definitely.
So, and I mean, that's where all these are coming from. Now
honestly, I feel like when it comes to the reboot sort of stuff, like getting money for a film tends to be a lot harder than it does when finding like a streaming like service at this point. So it's almost like they're desperate for projects for a lot of these things because they're trying. So we have so many of them now. It's almost like they're trying to like fight for like rights to different stuff. So I feel like this is for reboots. This is probably like the key time. Just go for those streaming services and be like, hey, like, who wants to put dibs on this?
And Netflix, I mean, they're obviously trying to corner that market with the new Invader Zim and Rocco, which were decent. They're both decent. I don't know if you've seen both of them.
I did watch Rocco. I have not seen Invader Zim.
I mean, I thought Invader Zim was lacking a little bit in like the original charm of the show. Mm-hmm. For me, I was never a massive Invader Zim fan. I just really loved the dog. The little robot. That dude was funny. Okay. That guy was hilarious, but it was decent. I don't really know if they're gonna do. I don't even know if they're gonna do anything with these reboots. I think these are just testing the water.
Well, I know for sure that the Rocco's Modern Life one was just a special because it actually picked up right where the original series left off, with them being blasted into space in a rocket, and then it was really self-aware special too. So the whole thing was basically coming down to like the storyline of about bringing back an old cartoon with like the same animation and all this other stuff, and like how the studio's trying to modernize it and stuff, and how it just doesn't work.
Yeah, it was kind of a little meta in that.
It was great. Yeah.
But I liked it, and I'm sure they're testing the water. I'm sure. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Again, to go back to the rights issues, they're Nickelodeon shows, so I'm sure they'd have to sign something. Netflix, Nickelodeon, and who knows. And we saw what happened between Netflix and Marvel. Thank you, Disney, for ruining that for us.
Daredevil too soon. Rip.
Yeah. Right.
Alright, so my next one is actually going to be a classic 1970s horror film by the name of The Reanimator, and there was actually a series of films. But however, I would like to see a more accurate reboot, and by what I mean is that the Reanimator series is actually supposed to be an adaptation from a short story by H.P. Lovecraft, but it was a complete departure from the source material when it came out, and so were all the following subsequent films. Turns out there was a reboot attempt in 2017, I want to say. Herbert West Reanimator, which is actually the name of the short story itself, which tried to be closer to the reboot, or the original source material itself, but I have not heard about the quality. I've not seen it, but I have not heard too much about the quality of the film, so and it's considering that all of H.P. Lovecraft's works are all open domain, so you can literally just like decide to make a film for it, and you're of free reign.
I did not know that. That is interesting.
Which makes me all the more frustrated on why we haven't seen any like major attempts to like make adaptations of his work, because there's such influential material there, and we can get into a H.P. Lovecraft in a whole another like episode if we want, but I would really like to see a reboot that was closer to the source material, set in the 1920s ideally, which the era where it was written, and just following the storyline of the mad scientist and trying to bring back his wife from the dead, which is the original plot of the novel. There was an attempt to adapt another film by H.P. Lovecraft called, or another novel, short story from H.P. Lovecraft called At the Mountains of Madness, which was going to have Guillermo del Toro leading the project, and unfortunately that also fell through the cracks. So hopefully soon, at some point, we will get to see some sort of adaptation of H.P. Lovecraft's works into like a good full production.
I mean, maybe even it would be great to see something like what they did with Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, and maybe slide in,
Yeah, actually,
2 or 3 of his shorter stories.
exactly, and that could actually be done pretty well. I feel like, just because like they're like his shortest stories are only maybe 20 pages long, so there's plenty that you could do with even like the span of a film, adapting like a group of a variety of storylines into a single one. Definitely.
Another one that I would like to see is the alligator movies from the early 80s.
Okay.
I mean, I'm a sucker for creature features. How I will watch anything. I will watch Sharknado. I love creature features. I feel like the alligator movies were so underappreciated in their time, and they were actually pretty decent movies for a movie about a giant alligator in a sewer. And I would love to see them bring that back with the computer graphics that they have now, because they used like a toy alligator in some of the scenes. So it'd be great to see them bring reboot that movie. I could see even turning into a series depending on where they went with it.
I actually would also like to make a quick mention too about a reboot that's actually happening that I've been wanting to see for a long time, which is the Spawn reboot. It is being done as a horror film, which I think is an excellent take on the character. It's following, for anyone who might be familiar with the old HBO series or the actual comics themselves, it's going to be following the two detectives, the cop duo, who's actually investigating crimes and murders in which the Spawn character is involved. And the only apprehension I kind of have about the series, unfortunately, is that Todd McFarlane himself is kind of leading the charge. And while I'm all in favor of the original creator having some pull in like the direction and how the handling of his property is being done, I am apprehensive of him directing simply because he has no directorial experience, and that could really work against him and the quality of the film. So I would like to see him at least take on an assistant director who can kind of like show him the ropes.
That's a good idea, actually.
But I am not going to hold my breath, unfortunately. On that
We've seen it in like Catastrophe before, because Stephen King directed Maximum Overdrive, which I like that movie, but if we're being honest, it's not the best movie in the world.
I think a big part of that, I wonder how much of a part of that actually would be just like they start having too much fun with what they're doing, and so they kind of end up deviating from their own like material themselves just because they're having so much fun directing.
I mean, Todd McFarlane's not a director.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's
people who are directors, they're directors because they're good at directing.
Exactly.
So that is like...
I'm not saying for sure it's going to be bad. He could just completely surprise us and come out of nowhere and just be like a spectacular horror director.
He's a talented guy.
He is, absolutely is, but I am apprehensive, and I think reasonably so.
Yeah.
So hopefully he'll prove me wrong, but...
And, I mean, I'm on the fence with Spawn the way it is, just because I don't know about Jamie Foxx in that role.
Yeah, that's another kind of... I'm a little bit questioning the casting. I'm not saying that Jamie Foxx is a bad actor. He's not. I actually think he's a fantastic actor. I just don't think he's a good fit for Al Simmons, necessarily.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess it's entirely possible they could hire a different actor to play Simmons as opposed to the Spawn character, and if Jamie Foxx is exclusively playing Spawn, then that could be a little bit different, considering like the CGI and makeup and all that stuff that they would do. But as Al Simmons, as the special ops like operator, like I'm a little bit nervous about that casting.
It'd be great if they brought back Michael J. White.
just that would be fantastic, actually.
Hopefully they'll bring him back for some kind of cameo.
Yeah. Of all the things that was wrong with the original Spawn movie, Michael J. White was not one of them.
No, man. I love that guy.
Fantastic.
I love all of his just terrible action movies. I love them.
On that subject, if you guys haven't seen Black Dynamite, highly recommend. Absolutely fantastic and hilarious movie starring Michael J. White. Kind of a modern day blaxploitation film. Fantastic, hilarious. Anyway.
Yeah, and we'll link to all these movies that we mentioned when we post this too.
Yes.
So you guys can kind of find them. Mm-hmm. Or actually find them.
Yep. Anything else?
I know there's a ton of reboots that I want to talk about, but I'm not. I mean, stay tuned for part 2, because I'm sure it'll come out.
Maybe another time.
And one more thing before we close out that I wanted to talk about was I just saw at Target today, and we'll link to this too, because I couldn't find it on Amazon, so it might be like a Target exclusive. But they have like a horror loot box
Okay.
that I thought was super cool. And I was just like walking through the aisles with my kids, and I was like, "Oh, hold up!" I think it was only like $20, and it had I don't know. I feel like it had like a Nightmare on Elm Street blanket in it, and
This is like a monthly subscription thing?
no, it's just like a one time.
Oh, okay.
And
Gotcha.
I don't know if they're gonna roll out new ones every once in a while or what the deal is, but it looked really cool for a horror fan. Something that you'd want to
It's like memorabilia. You can collect.
maybe add to your collection.
I would very much like to see actually a monthly subscription program for specifically for horror related stuff. I'm curious if there is. There might actually already be.
I've thought about starting one, but I don't even know where to start.
Yeah,
So,
that's a big question because I know they have some for video games, books, anime. All
well,
that
my
stuff.
wife has the FabFitFun box, and she
yeah.
loves it. She
Yeah,
gets
just always getting new interesting stuff.
yeah. So yeah, it would be great for horror fans.
Yeah, I think it'd be great
Stay tuned for Arthur and Tyler's horror loot box.
in a dream world.
All right, and then like always, we like to finish out our show by recommending maybe an off the grid horror movie that you guys might not have seen because it's older or
Just kind of
it just flew under the radar. So mine, sorry, mine this week
Try this with a straight face.
is the 1980 or 81 classic Chopping Mall. That's as good as it sounds. It's literally these kids, doing drugs, having sex, because
That's what teenagers
that's
do.
what teenagers do, and that's how they get murdered. And they lock themselves in a mall. One of their dads works at the mall, and they sneak in and lock themselves in their dad's store or whatever so they can have free reign of the mall. Well, the mall just adopted some security robots. And
Because of course.
it just so happened that the same night that these kids are locked in there and the robots are brand new, well, the mall gets hit by lightning and it screws the robots up. So they're just going through the mall, murdering kids, murdering janitors, murdering whoever they come across. And they're these little, like, no, they're not that little. They look like trash can, like R2-D2 and a trash can had a baby. That's what they look like. And they just going around and they have lasers that they're shooting people with. They have like tasers. I don't know.
Again?
It's yeah.
1980s?
Yeah. I think it's like, I want to say
in the 1980s?
80 or 81. But
Okay.
so if you guys haven't seen Chopping Mall, I really suggest Chopping Mall for a good time. And we'll link to that too. And I think Tyler has one as well.
Yeah, I would actually recommend one that's actually currently on Netflix. That kind of flew under a lot of people's radar, I find. I'm sure a good number of people have seen it, but for those who haven't, it's called The Invitation. And I kind of hesitate a little bit to call it a horror movie strictly. It's more of like a suspense film with some really creepy elements. And basic premise is that this man and his girlfriend are invited to this guy's ex-wife's dinner party at their old house, which they used to live in together. Weird things start happening almost from the get-go, and we are made aware that there was some sort of trauma involving the man and his ex-wife before their split. And there's just a really long sequence of creepy moments kind of building up to a crazy payoff. It's kind of a slow burn for those of you who are not good on, not really patient or need like constant action. You might not be your thing.
That's me.
But for those who can really appreciate like a slow building tension that just culminates in a crazy blood fest, this is exactly your kind of movie. The tension is top notch. Atmosphere is absolutely incredibly well done. It does something that I really appreciate in a horror film or pretty much any kind of movie where the opening scene really sets the tone of the film. It just opens with a really dreary, like quiet car ride on a kind of like a gloomy day and just kind of a casual conversation that's not really going anywhere. And suddenly they end up hitting a coyote and the guy is forced to get out and kill it with a freaking tire iron. And that's the opening of the film.
Whoa.
And so it kind of just like, I absolutely love when films do that. They just set the tone with such a fantastic opening scene that you kind of get a feel for like what you're going to be getting yourself into.
If anyone out there hasn't seen The Boys yet,
Yes.
that series starts in a similar fashion that just sets the tone, and that's what that just came to mind when you were describing that. Well, thank you everyone for listening and supporting us, and we finally got our stuff together, so hopefully people will be hearing a lot more of this.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening.